Welcome to Midnight Mysteries. If you feel like listening to a horror story, you're in the right place. Let me know what you think in the comments. Enjoy listening. Marco lives in a small town where change is rare, and every day seems like a faithful replica of the previous one. His house is on the corner of two little frequented streets and is a two-story structure with slightly peeling paint and a fence that creaks with every gust of wind. The interior is a hodgepodge of vintage materials, from magnets on the refrigerator to old books from the 80s and 90s piled on wobbly shelves, and even a stringless guitar in one corner of the dining room. Each of these mementos tells a story of his past life and unfulfilled aspirations. He has worked for years as a clerk in a post office, a job he does more out of necessity than passion. His days are a continuous succession of routines, automatic greetings to regular customers, coffee breaks always at the same time under the same old clock that ticks the seconds with mechanical and soulless precision. The work is monotonous, but at the same time, it allows him to retreat into his thoughts, which often take him far from the boring and repetitive reality that surrounds him. Marco spends his evenings at home, retreating to his small study, a corner of the world where he can be himself without any limitations. Here, surrounded by posters of cult films from the 80s and stacks of science fiction and horror novels, he finds comfort in his passions. He spends hours surfing online forums and reading articles on topics ranging from the paranormal to computer science. He is not particularly sociable, preferring the company of his books and his computer to the social life of the town. There is a vulnerability in Marco, a sense of dissatisfaction that drives him to seek something more, something exciting and perhaps even dangerous, something that goes beyond the monotony of his existence. The deep web. The first time he hears about it is in a YouTube video that captures him like one of those magnets stuck on his refrigerator. With its mysteries and dangers, it appears to him as an escape from reality, a place where he can explore what is hidden, forbidden, and unknown. It is as if, in the darkest recesses of the internet, he could find answers to questions he never dared to formulate. His curiosity is not just technological. It is almost existential. He wants to see what lies beyond the boundaries of his ordinary life, beyond social conventions and expectations. The stories he has read and the films he has seen have fueled his imagination, instilling in him a mix of fear and fascination for the unknown. The deep web represents the final frontier, a place where the rules of the real world are bent to human whim, where he can explore the depths of the human psyche and perhaps, in a certain sense, his own soul. There is also a component of rebellion in this desire. The deep web offers him a sense of control and power, even if dangerous and illusory. He hopes that by navigating those forbidden places, he can affirm his existence, rebelling against a reality he finds unsatisfying. It is a silent night, with only the sound of rain tapping against his study window. He turns on his laptop, and the sounds of the old hard drive seem more sinister tonight, in that tense atmosphere. Under the dim light of the lamp, his face is distortedly reflected on the screen, a mirror of his trepidation and excitement. As he waits for Tor's anonymization to complete and connect to the web, his heart pounds. It's a mix of fear and adrenaline, as if he is about to break a taboo. He knows he is about to enter a world where normal rules do not apply, a dark and hidden place that few dare to explore. When the connection is established, the screen lights up with a strange light, and his face is illuminated by a bluish glow. It was his first time, and navigating the deep web was exactly like venturing into a completely new world, one that needed to be explored. Each click takes him deeper. Each link seems to hide something unknown and potentially dangerous. The sites he encounters are of the most disparate types. Forums promising vast archives of secret government information, black markets for weapons, drugs of all kinds, and cloned credit cards. One link even takes him to a site called Area 51 that promises to reveal never-before-disclosed government secrets about the relationship between extraterrestrials and humans. As he delves deeper, he feels the tension increase. There is a sense of transgression in what he is doing, as if he is peering through a keyhole into a world he should not see. Yet the data is there, practically within reach of anyone with a computer and an internet connection. His tension, however, clashes with the total anonymity provided by Tor. Of the few things he was certain about the dark web, at the top was undoubtedly the fact that he was browsing completely anonymously and untraceably. Despite his rational mind telling him to stop, curiosity drives him to continue. The further he intrudes into the depths of the deep web, the more he feels like an intruder, aware that his eyes are seeing things meant to remain hidden. Around him, the atmosphere begins to feel oppressive, as if the air itself is heavier. Even the humidity from the outside air seems to seep through the worn-out frames, causing him sudden chills. At one point, a gust of wind blows open a window just as he is about to click yet another link. His finger jumps off the mouse. It was a dilapidated window he had known for months needed fixing. However, it is the impetus to realize that for that evening, he had already gone too far, completely losing track of time, and his browsing was too laden with anxiety. Thus, his first session in the deep web ends, leaving him with a feeling of unease twisting in his stomach. He has seen too many things that even in his deepest imagination he would never have just hypothesized to find online. Turning off the laptop, he realizes he has now crossed a threshold, and the world on the other side has completely captivated him. The next night, with new determination, he sits again in front of his old laptop. The air in his room is still, charged with palpable anticipation. He turns on the computer, and the screen's light again illuminates his face, which this time has lost the unease of the previous day and instead has a more marked determination and confidence. Marco begins to explore with greater attention, moving with a mix of caution and curiosity. He has learned from the previous night that the deep web is a labyrinth of information and, above all, disinformation, an ocean of data where it is easy to drown. It is during this session that he finds a reference to something called RedWiki. In an encrypted forum, amidst messages of illicit sales and mysterious discussions, a user mentions the site as if it were a true legend of the deep web. The description is vague but intriguing. A place where the darkest answers can be found and the deepest secrets revealed. Curiosity lights up like an incandescent bulb. He begins searching meticulously, following scattered clues and mysterious connections. The web pages become increasingly simple and essential, almost as if they were created only because they were strictly necessary for navigation. After hours of searching, he finally finds a link that seems to lead to the Red Wiki. The link is hidden at the bottom of a long and twisted thread, as if it had been left there only for the most attentive and persistent eyes. Marco feels his heart rate accelerate as he moves the cursor over the link. There is a sense of danger, almost as if he is about to cross the threshold of a forbidden world. When he clicks, the screen suddenly goes black, as if the laptop had stopped working. But then, slowly, text and links begin to appear in a dark red on a black background. The Red Wiki reveals itself before him. A shiver runs down his spine. It is as if he were in one of those submarines used for marine explorations, standing on the edge of an abyss that, however, stares back at him. An underground world of information he should never have seen. In this moment, he realizes he has arrived at a place beyond his understanding. A place where reality mixes with the deepest darkness. The room around him seems to grow colder, and the sound of his breathing is the only noise in an oppressive silence. With the discovery of the Red Wiki, Marco finds himself facing a reality that surpasses every expectation and fearful imagination. The page, with its black background and dark red links, looks like a portal to something profoundly dark and forbidden. As he scrolls through the titles, a cold sensation starts to creep down his back, a forewarning of terror he cannot dispel. The links appear like red eyes staring at him, each suggesting hidden stories and secrets. Some titles are so disturbing that they make him avert his gaze, while others draw him with a morbid curiosity. The light from the screen paints his face in a ghostly glow, reflecting his trepidation. As he explores the links, Marco feels as if he is breaking one taboo after another. Each click on a link is accompanied by a stronger heartbeat, as if he is doing something profoundly wrong and illicit. With each page he opens, the sensation and anxiety of being watched in this navigation among absolute illegalities grow in him. The contents he finds are disturbing. Black markets of all kinds, forums on dark conspiracy theories, documents that seem to reveal government secrets. Each discovery takes him deeper into a world where morality and legality seem to have been abandoned. As he moves from one link to another, he starts to feel overwhelmed. The curiosity that has driven him this far begins to transform into a sense of guilt and fear. The realization that he is exploring something truly dark and potentially dangerous hits him like a punch in the stomach. Despite the growing terror, he is unable to pull away. In this moment, Marco feels trapped between his morality and his morbid curiosity, in an internal struggle between the desire to know and the fear of what he might discover. The room around him seems to grow darker, more isolated, as if it were closing in on him. After opening dozens of improbable links, he stumbles upon a link that seems to stand out from the others: Midnight Mysteries. There is something about that name that resonates within him, an almost magnetic allure that captures his attention despite the growing sense of fear and unease. The choice to explore that link is a moment of deep conflict for Marco. He remembers the stories he read on forums about the risks of the deep web, and there is a voice in his head telling him to shut the laptop and walk away from all this. However, an irresistible force pushes him. The curiosity that has driven him this far seems to intensify, turning into an almost physical need to discover what lies behind that mysterious name. He finds himself staring at the link, the mouse pointer dancing back and forth in an uncertain waltz. His heart beats loudly, each pulse a reminder of the reality he is challenging. Finally, with a mixture of fear and determination, he clicks. As soon as he does, a surge of adrenaline courses through his body as if he has opened a door to the unknown. The screen briefly flickers, then a new page loads, different from all the ones he has seen before. It is a simple, almost banal page, with a black background and very faint gray text. In the center, an invitation with a yellow button seems to await his action. Reading chat. It is a moment of suspension, where time slows down to almost a complete halt. The decision to join the Midnight Mysteries chat marks a point of no return. It is the choice to immerse himself definitively and consciously in that world. But at that moment, he is driven by a force greater than himself, a push toward the mystery that defines the very essence of his being. And so he finds himself facing a chat screen. The design is shabby and minimalist, a text field and a send button on a black background. The atmosphere is surreal, and he thinks for a few seconds that it is just a joke. How could a page be so banal? The chat seems to be suspended in nothingness, a small fragment of reality in a sea of digital darkness. His hand hesitates above the keyboard, doubt and excitement mixing in his chest. With a deep breath, Marco breaks the silence that has settled around him. He types a simple hi, a word so everyday that it seems almost out of place in that context. He presses send and waits for a response. Seconds seem to stretch into minutes. The wait is charged with tension. The chat is silent. No immediate response appears on the screen. Marco begins to wonder if anyone will respond, or if it is indeed all a stupid setup like dozens of other links he had seen the previous evening. Then, after what seems like an eternity, a response appears. It is a simple welcome written in gray characters. That message is like the sound of a door opening to another world. His heart pounds in his chest, pumping a mix of fear and curiosity. Thus, he begins to interact cautiously. His mind is alert, aware that he is entering a game whose rules he does not know. A game where the stakes could be much higher than he imagines. As the chat comes to life with the usual pleasantries, Marco is literally thrown out of his chair in fright. Without warning, the screen of his monitor splits into two parts. On the right, the chat, while on the left, in a few moments, a figure takes shape and occupies that space. It is the face of a masked woman. The woman is shrouded in wisps of mist, her face partially concealed by a mask that appears to be made of intricate black lace, mysterious and intricate. But her eyes, Marco will never forget those eyes, are red as crimson and glow with an intensity that pierces through the screen. She does not speak, does not move an inch, remains completely still. Her presence is silent, but fills the air completely. His heart beats faster, and for a moment, it is as if the air in the room has run out, and he feels as if he cannot breathe. The sudden appearance of the masked woman shatters the fragile balance he had maintained until that moment in the chat, thrusting him into a realm of pure terror. Marco is paralyzed, unable to do anything but tremble like a leaf in the wind, and his blood freezes in his veins. At this instant, the woman seems to move slightly, and Marco, diverting his gaze for a moment, notices a detail that terrifies him completely. In the lower part of the chat window, a small box shows another image, one that makes him freeze on the spot. It is his own image, the room he is in, reflected as if the webcam on his laptop were active. Marco's heart skips a beat. He does not remember activating the webcam. In fact, he is almost certain he did not. The realization that someone may have activated it remotely, that someone may be watching him right now, pervades him with an icy chill. He feels as if an invisible hand has touched his back, a silent but threatening contact. For a few seconds, Marco is paralyzed with horror. His eyes dart from the figure of the masked woman to his image on the screen. There is no mistake. Someone is watching him, penetrating the barrier of anonymity behind which he had hidden. The feeling of being exposed, of being vulnerable and watched, is overwhelming. A wave of panic washes over him. His first instinct is to shut everything down immediately, to turn off the laptop and break that unsettling connection. His hands, now trembling, move frantically toward the mouse, desperately trying to close the chat window. But, to his growing despair, he realizes he cannot. The mouse cursor moves but does not respond to his commands. He clicks repeatedly, but the chat window remains open, unchanging, the masked woman continuing to stare at him with those penetrating eyes. It is as if the computer has become an entity unto itself, refusing to obey his commands, holding him in that moment of terror. Marco tries pressing Alt plus F4, using the task manager, anything to force close the program. However, his laptop seems to have rebelled against him, as if it had been taken over by an external force. The realization that he is trapped in this situation, with no way out, increases his sense of helplessness and fear. His heartbeat is so strong he can hear it in his ears, each pulse a reminder of the dangerous situation he is in. He rises from his chair, moving away from the laptop, as if putting physical distance could somehow protect him. His eyes are fixed on the screen, on the face of the masked woman who watches him, and this time with a malicious grin, she reveals long, sharp canines. Desperate, Marco reaches for the laptop's power cord and yanks it from the socket, hoping to cut off the power, relying on the rundown battery that now lasted only a few seconds. For a few moments that seem like an eternity, nothing happens. Then the screen finally goes dark, leaving him in the darkness of his room. Breathing heavily, Marco finds himself immersed in silence and darkness, his heart pounding and his t-shirt soaked in sweat. Even though he has cut the connection, the feeling of fear and being watched does not disappear. He feels exposed, vulnerable, as if the eyes that had watched him through the screen can still see him, following him beyond the boundaries of the digital world. He sits in the dark, his heart still racing, as he tries to process what just happened. The laptop, now off, seems like a foreign object, a silent threat lying inert on the desk. The fear and panic that dominated the last moments give way to a series of tumultuous emotions and reflections. The idea of being watched in his most private space, his room, by a stranger hidden in the shadows, makes him feel exposed and powerless. Then, a deep sense of anxiety and paranoia sets in. The question that keeps buzzing in his head is, who was that masked woman? And most importantly, did the invasion end with the laptop shutdown, or is there more? Marco finds himself looking around his room, almost expecting to find some sign of an unwanted presence, a trace left by the intrusion into his world. The fear mixes with a guilt that churns him up. He scolds himself for seeking the thrill and exploring the deep web, for ignoring the well-known dangers of that dark world. It is an awareness that makes him feel even more isolated, knowing he cannot share this experience with others for fear of judgment or consequences. As the night wears on, Marco remains awake, curled up in a corner of his small study, immersed in his thoughts and the silence of the room. In the days following this event, he finds himself immersed in a psychological turmoil that goes well beyond a simple reaction of fear. His daily life, once familiar and comfortable, is now permeated by a sense of anxiety and suspicion he cannot shake off. He constantly feels on edge, suspicious of every person he meets, every animal, and even every technological anomaly, no matter how innocent it may be. Every time his work computer starts up slowly or his cell phone behaves unexpectedly, his heart begins to beat faster, reviving the memory of the experience he lived. During the nights, his sleep is disturbed by vivid nightmares. He finds himself reliving that experience endlessly, causing him to collect only a few hours of rest and contributing to a general sense of exhaustion. Even when awake, he feels tired, as if the weight of what he has experienced is constantly dragging him down. Months go by, and little by little, Marco's life returns to its routine. That nightmare remains a constant in his thoughts, but he tries to react by immersing himself in interpersonal relationships with colleagues at work and reconnecting with old friendships he had deliberately neglected in recent years. Marco engages in a personal struggle to regain a sense of normalcy in his life. He decides to limit his internet use, removing himself from all the social media he was part of, and especially avoiding even hearing about the deep web like the plague. Every interaction with his computer is now marked by excessive caution, and he often prefers to leave it off, finding comfort in activities far from digital, such as reading his physical books. Another important step in seeking normalcy is the attempt to restructure his physical space. He changes the arrangement of his room and study in an attempt to remove the memories associated with the incident. Despite these efforts, Marco realizes that the path to completely overcoming the experience is long and complex. His quest for normalcy is a constant process, marked by a few highs and many lows. Moments of apparent tranquility alternated with episodes of anxiety and intrusive and vivid memories. It was about a year after that terrible evening when, returning home from work, tired but satisfied to have managed to spend a relatively normal day, he finds something unexpected: an anonymous letter left in his mailbox. At first, Marco almost decides to tear it up, thinking it was the usual postal advertising. But then a sixth sense stops him. When he opens it, his heart stops for a moment. Inside is a single sheet of paper with words cut out from magazines and newspapers pasted together to form a message. You shouldn't have run away. The raw and threatening nature of the message hits him like a punch in the stomach. For a moment, Marco stands immobile on his doorstep, the letter trembling in his hands. The realization that someone has discovered his address, that this person or entity has violated his personal sphere once again, pervades him with a chilling terror. His attempts to forget, to return to normalcy, are swept away in an instant, replaced by acute and paralyzing fear. As this new reality sinks into his mind, the paranoia that had begun to subside returns forcefully. Marco enters the house, closing the door with a thud, locking all the locks and putting on the padlock. He feels trapped, pursued by an invisible threat that seems able to reach him anywhere. The interior of his home, which had started to feel like a refuge again, now takes on an oppressive atmosphere, as if the walls could hide prying eyes. Apparently, everything in his house is as he left it in the morning, except for one thing in a strange position. His laptop, damn, it was open and on, but the screen was as black as night. With a clumsy and instinctive gesture, he closes the laptop screen, unplugs it, and hurls it against a wall, destroying it. That evening is marked by growing anxiety. Marco finds himself repeatedly checking the locks, peering out the windows, looking for signs of anyone or anything suspicious. Every noise seems amplified to him, every shadow a potential hiding place for invisible dangers. That night Marco spends sitting in a corner far from doors and windows, eyes wide open with psychosis, clutching a large kitchen knife in his right hand. His laptop, now reduced to an unusable carcass, lies less than a meter away from him, the silence around broken only by his irregular breathing. Meanwhile, outside that house, the town continues its life, completely unaware of the silent drama unfolding behind those walls.